Diabetes is becoming more common in Singapore in part due to an aging population and unhealthy lifestyles. It's the fifth most common medical condition here and one of the top 6 killer diseases. Now today, 11% of Singaporean adults between the ages of 16 and 69 have diabetes, and type 2 diabetes is very common, normally associated with being overweight. And with World Diabetes Day approaching next week, are enough Singaporeans aware of the condition and how it should be managed? So to help us to understand that, I have with me in studio Dr. Kevin Tan, Vice President of the Diabetic Society of Singapore, and Mr. Eddie Tan, who has type 1 diabetes. So gentlemen, thank you for coming today. So Dr. Tan, perhaps we'll start with you. Statistics show about 9% of the adult population in Singapore has diabetes. So what have you observed over the years that's perhaps cause for concern?
Well, there's a high number that has diabetes. Diabetes is still a condition that increases with age. So more elderly people do have diabetes. At the same time, we see younger people having diabetes as well.
Younger people meaning what age?
Well, usually we say diabetes would come on if you're above 40. We've seen people 20, 30s, even in the teens have diabetes.
Okay, so Eddie, you're very active. You run, you're a sailor as well, but you were diagnosed with type 1 diabetes about 3 years ago. How did you first realize that something was wrong?
Something was wrong because I have frequent toilets often. I feel thirsty on my non-exercise day. Plus having the common food in front of me, I have no appetite to partake in the food. The vomiting and throwing out led me to went to A&E. That's where I found I have diabetes.
I see. So Dr. Tan, you know, Eddie's condition, would this be typical of someone who has type 1 diabetes?
Yes, for type 1 diabetes, we always say it's catastrophic, that the symptoms come on suddenly when you least expect it. But for type 2 diabetes, sometimes you may not even feel it.
Okay, but it happened to Eddie when he was in the prime of his life. How old were you?
I was 30 then.
He was 30 then. Is this quite normal?
Type 1 diabetes can actually affect a person at any age, from a young child to an elderly adult.
So Eddie, how did you overcome the psychological blow? Because I don't think anyone expects to have diabetes.
It was tough for me because during that 8 days in A&E, I was asking the doctors and healthcare, say, hey, sure or not, why me? Then they were saying that yes, it's here to stay with me. Through the denying stage, I also learned to accept that this is here to stay. I have no choice but to control it myself. So with that acceptance, I went on to find out how can I reduce it, get on in life with diabetes.
So the theme of this year's World Diabetes Day is about managing diabetes well, and you're emphasizing the importance of good support from family and friends and doctors. So Doctor, what do you have to say about that?
That's right. I mean, from Eddie's example, I mean, type 1 diabetes can be very lonely. You may not know anyone else who has diabetes. So it's very important for a support group, not just from family, but also from friends and like-minded people who have diabetes, to be able to identify, support and encourage.
So Eddie, how do you manage to keep your condition under control?
During the initial 3 to 6 months, I went to do checkups, met up with dietitians, tell doctors what are my plans, my goals for the next 9 months to come. Back then was the Aviva Half Ironman. It's an endurance race, 7 hours. So I have to decide, should I go on and take part or should I just withdraw? But having that good control, dedicated nurse educator and circles of friends from the society, they help me to understand how should I cope in sports and in my normal life. With that monitoring, I was able to understand the effect of the insulin on my body and the side consequences, what will happen if I miss the insulin or overdose.
So Doctor,
with that, it was good. Yeah.
Doctor, one last question for you. Would you say that this is one of the biggest problems or the hardest things for patients is to be disciplined about their new lifestyle, managing their food intake and their medication?
It is definitely so. You need a lot of discipline to cope with the condition, and of course you need the support from people around you.
All right, thank you very much for coming in today. Unfortunately, we run out of time, but great speaking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And that was Dr. Tan and Eddie telling us more about diabetes in Singapore and, of course, the importance of managing the condition well.